They laughed as she took off her jacket, a simple moment that no one expected to turn into something unforgettable. It started like any other gathering, a casual meetup among friends and strangers alike. The air was light, filled with jokes and easy chatter. Everyone thought they knew her, just the quiet girl who kept to herself, blending into the background without drawing much attention. But as she peeled off her jacket, revealing something no one saw coming, the room's mood shifted instantly. The laughter stopped, conversations hushed, eyes locked onto the tattoo on her back, a mark so striking it froze everyone in place. That tattoo wasn't just ink. It told a story full of mystery, pain, and strength. It was the kind of tattoo that made people look twice and wonder what secrets it held. No one knew her past, but that moment cracked open a door to a world beneath the surface that no one expected. Was it a symbol of a forgotten memory, a message to those who could understand, or a sign of something far more powerful? Whatever it was, it changed how everyone saw her, not as the quiet girl, but as someone with a story that demanded to be heard. As the room fell silent, could feel the tension rise, like the calm before a storm. No one dared to speak, but everyone was waiting, silently asking the same question. Who was she really? What had led her to wear that tattoo, and why now? This isn't just a story about a tattoo. It's about secrets, judgments, and the moments that change everything. Stay with me as we dive deeper into the mystery behind that unforgettable night and the woman who stunned everyone with just one reveal. No one knew much about her before that night. She had always been quiet, the kind of person who avoided the spotlight and stayed in the background. At first, people thought she was shy or maybe just a little distant, but the truth was far more complicated. Behind those calm eyes was a past she never talked about, a past that the tattoo hinted at, but no one could quite figure out. That tattoo was unlike anything anyone in the room had ever seen. Its design was intricate, with sharp lines and soft curves blending into a symbol that felt both ancient and deeply personal. It wrapped across her back like a secret message written just for those brave enough to look. Some guessed it was a symbol of loss. Others thought it might be tied to a hidden part of her identity, something she had lived with quietly for years. What made it even more mysterious was the timing. Why show it now? Why in front of all these people, some of whom barely knew her? The question hung heavy in the air, making the silence stretch longer. The usual small talk and laughter felt out of place now, replaced by a shared curiosity and something else, a kind of cautious respect. As the night went on, glances were stolen, whispers began, and some tried to catch her eye, hoping for answers. But she stayed calm, almost as if she expected this reaction. There was a quiet strength in her that didn't need words to be felt. Still, no one knew the full story. The tattoo was a puzzle, a glimpse into a chapter of her life that no one had read yet, and somewhere beneath that calm exterior, she was carrying a weight that few could understand. What that weight was and how it connected to the tattoo was a question that begged for an answer, but one that wouldn't come easily. The night was far from over, and the mystery was only just beginning to unfold. As the night wore on, the tattoo became the silent center of every conversation, even if no one dared to speak about it openly. Some of the guests exchanged uneasy glances, trying to piece together what it might mean. Among them was Marcus, someone who had known her longer than most, but still felt like a stranger in many ways. He had always sensed there was something she wasn't saying, something hidden beneath the surface, but seeing that tattoo finally confirmed his suspicions. It wasn't just ink. It was a key to a part of her life he hadn't been invited to enter. Meanwhile, others started to imagine their own stories about her past. Was it a sign of rebellion, a symbol of pain, or maybe a mark of survival? The whispers grew louder, but none of them matched the truth. What complicated things even more was the mix of admiration and judgment in the room. Some saw the tattoo as powerful, a symbol of courage. Others looked at it with suspicion, questioning why she would choose to reveal something so personal in such a public way. At the same time, there was Leah, a close friend who had always supported her quietly. From the sidelines, Leah noticed how the shift in attention affected her, the flicker of vulnerability behind her steady gaze, the brief hesitations that no one else caught. She knew the tattoo was connected to a painful chapter they had both lived through, one that no one else was ready to hear about yet. Leah's protective instincts kicked in, but she also knew that keeping secrets this big could only last for so long. Tensions grew between those who wanted to know more and those who feared the truth. And somewhere in the middle was the woman, herself caught between revealing everything and holding on to her privacy. The tattoo had broken the surface, but what lay beneath was far more complicated, and the real story was still waiting to be told. As the night edged forward, it became clear that this moment would change everything, but how? No one could say just yet. The room felt heavier as the evening grew darker, the atmosphere thick with unspoken questions. Every glance toward her was charged with curiosity, mixed with a touch of fear, as if people were afraid that by learning her story, they might somehow become a part of it. Marcus found himself torn between wanting to break the silence and respecting the invisible boundary she had drawn. He could see the weight in her shoulders growing, even as she tried to stay composed. The tattoo wasn't just a symbol anymore. It was a living reminder of something unresolved, something that had the power to change everything. Leah stayed close, her eyes quietly searching for a sign, any hint of what might come next. She knew that the night's tension wasn't just about the tattoo itself, but the truth behind it. The story that had been buried for so long was inching closer to the surface. And with it, the possibility of pain, heartbreak, or even forgiveness. The crowd around them shifted uneasily, sensing that this was no ordinary moment. Whispers stopped as everyone waited, almost breathless, for her next move. Then, something changed. A subtle shift in her posture, a barely noticeable glance toward Marcus. It was like a signal, small but clear. The questions that had hung in the air were about to be answered, or so everyone thought. But before any words were spoken, the silence was shattered by a sudden interruption. The door opened and someone unexpected stepped into the room. Eyes locked on her with a mix of surprise and something darker. The tension exploded, filling the space with electric energy. The tattoo, the secret, the waiting, it all seemed to pulse louder now, ready to break free. Everyone's breath caught, hearts pounding in unison, waiting to see what would happen next. The moment hung on the edge of a knife, and no one knew if it would bring closure or chaos. Whatever came after, it was clear that nothing would ever be the same again. The moment the door swung open, the room's fragile tension snapped like a thread. All eyes turned sharply toward the newcomer, a figure no one expected to see. His gaze was fixed on her tattoo, and in it there was a recognition that made the air grow colder. It wasn't just surprise, it was something heavier, almost like fear. Marcus's heart raced, Leah's protective instincts flared, and the woman who had revealed the tattoo suddenly seemed smaller, more vulnerable. The man stepped forward slowly, his voice low but steady. "I never thought I'd find you here." Those words hung in the air, loaded with meaning no one could ignore. It was clear that his arrival was connected to the secret the tattoo represented, a secret that had clearly followed her, haunting her even now. The crowd around them grew silent again, but this time the silence was filled with sharp tension. Like the calm before a storm, suddenly the atmosphere shifted from curiosity to danger. Whispers started spreading about what this man's appearance meant. Some people began to realize that the tattoo wasn't just a symbol from her past. It was a warning. a message tied to a hidden conflict that was far from over. The stakes were higher than anyone could have guessed. And now the mystery that had quietly simmered beneath the surface was boiling over. Leah stepped protectively closer, sensing that the calm they had all hoped for was slipping away fast. Marcus locked eyes with the woman, searching for any sign of what to do next. But she only shook her head slightly, as if to say the story wasn't hers to tell yet, not until the truth came out on its own terms. The tension hung thick, and the question that burned in everyone's mind was clear. Who was this man, and why had he come back now? The tattoo had been a clue, but the real story, the one tied to the man's sudden return, was about to rewrite everything. And no, one was prepared for what would come next. The room seemed to shrink as the man's eyes locked onto her tattoo, and the weight of the moment pressed down on everyone. She took a deep breath, steadying herself before finally breaking the silence. "You don't have to be here," she said quietly, her voice carrying the pain and strength that had been hidden for so long. "It's over." The man's expression flickered, a mix of regret and something darker crossing his face. He stepped closer, revealing a scar that matched the story inked on her back, a painful past neither of them could escape. He had once been the reason she bore that tattoo, a symbol of a chapter filled with betrayal and survival. But now, standing face to face, something had shifted. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice raw. "I never wanted this to follow you." Her eyes softened, and for the first time she let the weight of the past loosen just a little. The room held its breath as the tension began to ease, replaced by a fragile hope that the past might finally be put to rest. But just as relief settled in, the unexpected happened. The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, folded note, sliding it across the floor toward her. "There's more," he said. "Things you don't know. Things that could change everything." She looked down, her heart pounding as she unfolded the paper. The words written there were a shock, a secret about her past that even she hadn't known. Something that threatened to rewrite her story entirely. The crowd watched, frozen, as the room filled again with unanswered questions. The tattoo was just the beginning. Her true journey was only starting. And this time, the secrets were deeper, darker, and more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. She stared at the note, her fingers trembling as the weight of those few words sank in. It wasn't just a message, it was a key to a hidden truth she had never been ready to face. But now, surrounded by people who had witnessed her most vulnerable moment, she realized that the past didn't have to define her anymore. Marcus stepped forward quietly, offering a steady presence. Leah stayed close, her support unwavering. In that room full of curious eyes, she finally felt a sense of calm wash over her. The tattoo on her back was more than a symbol of pain. It was a reminder of resilience, a mark of survival. It had drawn attention and stirred whispers, but in the end, it connected her to people who mattered and to a story worth telling. The man who had returned was part of that story, but no longer the one who controlled it. She folded the note carefully and tucked it away, ready to face whatever came next on her own terms. The secret it held was a challenge, but also an opportunity, a chance to rewrite her narrative and take back control. As the night ended, the room slowly filled with quiet, conversations and soft smiles. The laughter that had stopped was beginning again, but this time it felt different, genuine, hopeful. The tension that had once filled the air had dissolved into something lighter, a shared understanding that everyone carries stories beneath. The surface stories waiting for the right moment to be seen. Her journey wasn't over, but this moment was a turning point. She had faced judgment, mystery, and fear, and come through stronger. The tattoo on her back was no longer just ink. It was a symbol of courage, change, and the power of owning your story, no matter how complicated it might be.